If you were going to look back when what would you tell yourself just starting out in the industry?
The thing I would say, I was very blessed throughout my career to meet a lot of smart, innovative people, and to learn from them, and then leverage that into my career and drive more opportunity.
Welcome to the Ride and Style Podcast, your turbocharged pit stop for automotive restyling. Buckle up with Jesse and Josh.
Welcome to another episode of the Ride and Style Podcast. We're on episode 20 already. This is Tim Martin of Aftermarket Advisors. Tim, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here.
Tim, you're retired. Why are you even doing this podcast? This is crazy.
I'm not sure. It's a good question. I guess I would say Josh is somebody that I work with quite a bit in SEMA volunteering, and he's one of those people you enjoy having a conversation with, so I thought it'd be fun.
And how did you guys meet, Josh?
Wow.
How'd you meet?
I met Tim. I'll let you tell his first impression of me, which is probably way scarier. But I met Tim when he was chair-elect for the board, I think was the first time you were on the board. And I met you at a summit for all the select committee members. And I think you were standing next to Wade, and I asked you a question and gave me a good answer. And I was like, yeah, that guy's pretty smart. I like that guy. So that was my first impression. So it was your brains that really caught my attention more than your looks.
Appreciate that. For me, it was Josh, I think, was wearing red. That was the thing.
Oh, Florida. That's what it was.
Might have been.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. Yeah, see, here's the problem, Jesse. Funny story. So we're at this little retreat in Florida, SEMA leadership, and we're, coming up with ideas and, I don't know leadership retreat. Anyway, they say, well, tomorrow be casual, dress casual. Well, someone from Ohio is a little bit different casual than, somebody like Tim who's from California. Casual to him is his Callaway golf shirt with a nice pair of Dockers. You say casual to me, buddy, first of all, he's fortunate I didn't just show up in my pajamas. All right, I changed into red sweatpants.
I thought they were pajamas.
No, they weren't. They're not.
That's one level up.
I changed from my pajamas into my folded nice red sweatpants that I brought with a sweatshirt. I'm like, but everybody seemed to get a kick out of that, and I was like, this is casual, guys. Oh, scary stuff. But yeah, that's you spent a lot of time with us back then, at that retreat.
Yeah, we did. It was fun. It was a great experience, really. There's one of the things SEMA does really well is they get a lot of people from the industry together for different reasons. In that particular, I want to say we spent maybe 2 days talking about industry issues with 100 really talented, young, energetic people, and then some, older guys like me. That I learned a lot from that group, and it was a lot of fun. I don't remember. I guess Josh, you had been selected to become a future chair of.
That's what it was. Yeah,
Restylers.
I had just won chair-elect. So I was going to be going into that role in a month or two. So yeah, that's why Dino and I were there together. So, and
it was fun.
Tim, that's when Tim figured out what a restyler was.
Well, I kind of knew, but I learned a lot about how those businesses work, and really gained a lot of appreciation and respect for their role in the aftermarket and how they help consumers really take average run-of-the-mill cars off a dealership lot and turn them into really cool, unique vehicles, and how the restyler acts as an agent of the dealer to really understand the trends in the market. It was cool.
Tim, how did you get in the automotive industry to begin with? If you could go back to the beginning, I'd love to know a little bit more about your history and what made you want to do all this stuff.
Yep. So I'm an engineer. I've been worked for the Navy as an engineer for about 10 years and was doing consulting on the side. And through basically a professional group. I met some people from K&N Engineering, which they're really well known for filters and intakes, and I kind of maybe had heard of the company, but I was working with a good friend at the time. Our consulting, we were doing consulting together, and he was a huge K&N customer, used their products for 10 years or something. So we went out there for the first time. We were doing software consulting, and I think we met in the smallest, least impressive conference room that I've ever been in my career. And it was basically this tiny little conference room in the corner of one of, at the time, K&N probably had like 7 or 8, probably 8 buildings in Riverside, California. And this was one of the smallest, this tiny little room, but it was like, well, you were like 30 feet from the dyno, and there's manufacturing and things happening. Not impressive little room. Half the room was full of boxes and storage. The company was growing. There just wasn't enough room. So anyway, we met in that little office. But then as we got to go around and learn about the company, there's a lot of impressive stuff. This was back in, I think, 1997. So she's really gained a lot of respect working as a consultant, doing a lot of things to help streamline manufacturing and inventory management. And so went from doing some part-time work as a consultant to really working full-time as a vendor partner for a couple of years, 2.5 years, I think. And then got the opportunity to, I kind of left for a while and was doing some of my other consulting work. And the company really wanted to get me to come back. So they made a pretty good offer for me to come work as an employee in 2000, and came on there, and it was just an incredible career opportunity to work with a great company that was already great, but tremendous opportunity to really excel and transform the business. And so I was given a lot of just incredible opportunities to make an impact in that business. Have all kinds of interesting stories about that, which I'd be glad to share some of them. But
so you became the COO at that point?
No. At that time, I was part of a very small team, working on software originally. And so then when I became an employee, I was director of information systems. And so we had a team of people that, what you think of as infrastructure IT, managing the network and the phone system, security systems, all those kinds of things. And we had a lot of networked equipment in the manufacturing plant and throughout the company. But we had custom software that drove, portions of how we operated. And we had already, when I was consulting, I'd been involved in a lot of interesting, fun things, really improve some of the capabilities of the business. But once I started working full time, we could move into impacting other areas of the business or having a deeper approach to how the systems would run. And so K&N's, a company that sells products to every kind of automotive aftermarket channel you can think of. And most people can't think of them all. They haven't had experience with some of the unusual segments. But Restylers is an interesting segment. It's very unique, but we sold products through that channel, but we sold products to major retailers, both automotive retailers and mass retailers, to all kinds of distributors, performance distributors, motorcycle products distributors, sold all around the United States, Mexico, but really around the world. I think we sold product in 90 countries at one point. So, but we were, basically coming up with product concepts, designing those products, building the manufacturing tooling, the machineries, in some cases, actual machinery that would do injection molding or other kinds of manufacturing, and then doing the manufacturing, the warehousing, the distribution, and the sales and marketing in one complex. So a very, very vertically integrated company with all kinds of capabilities that most companies would have. And we have the opportunity to basically take real-time information in one part of the business and channel that into other parts of the business in ways that most companies never could dream of. And so I started in the manufacturing and inventory control area. And also, as a side note, we did some work very early in things like product data. The company had, pretty advanced product data systems even in the late 90s. And that was really unusual. Most customers wouldn't know what to do with that information. But we had a bunch of it because selling through not just the U.S. market, the automotive market, but the motorcycle market, the European market. We had a factory and a distribution center in England at the time. And there are just lots of unique requirements. So we built a lot of that stuff. But the manufacturing, really, there was a lot of opportunity to break down how we went from, for example, an order to product on the shelf shipped to the customer. And most people in the industry, there's a lot of disconnects between somebody like Josh receiving product and a manufacturer getting some kind of a supply chain signal to make that product. And especially a lot of manufacturers don't make their product. They outsource that, but even though we might call them manufacturers, they are to some extent. But we were, again, like I said, everything from design all the way through distribution done in one facility. So we could take an order, as things progressed, we got to the point where we could take an order that was a custom product or something that we didn't stock and build it sometimes in hours, ship it within 24 hours or 48 hours. Because of the integration between the system, the sales management system, order processing, the purchasing system, the manufacturing, scheduling, and the manufacturing execution system, and then the inventory and shipping systems, one unified system, which is really, really unusual. And the speed that information can flow was a big deal.
So how many employees were there? Right
There were, the
Riverside?
company grew over the years. At one point, there were 1,000 employees. And then through efficiency, that number got smaller, doing actually a little bit more business. But, but it was, I think, it was probably about 800 or in that 850 range. I think when I retired.
So
in 2018 is when I retired from K&N.
Did you ever have to learn what does K&N stand for?
Yes, I did.
What is it?
Actually, you pretty much learn.
I don't know.
Day one.
I don't know.
You learn it right away.
Was it? Let me guess. Was it Ken and Nancy filters?
That's pretty close.
Okay.
So there were some guys in the 60s that they were like motorcycle friends, and they raced motorcycles, but at some point they sold motorcycles. So K&N was a guy named Ken Johnson, a guy named Norm McDonald, and those two guys formed K&N.
Ken and Norm.
And they really just formed it so they could continue to be involved with motorcycle business and all of that. And at first they were motorcycle dealers, and they had, somebody told me one time they had something like 15 motorcycle dealerships in California. And they were, I think, the first Yamaha dealer in the United States, one of the biggest. But in addition to doing that, they started playing around with manufacturing motorcycle parts. And then they had race teams. And so they had really a successful racing program with business finance through selling motorcycles, repairing motorcycles in service, and then manufacturing some stuff.
I had a question for you, Tim. Because you said that you guys were really well vertically integrated and you're able to it sounds like you could be pretty nimble. So, and you mentioned something about like innovations, or if somebody wanted to test something, were you guys focused on that? Like research and development? Were you trying new things when you were there? Was it? And so if somebody had an idea, were you able to, hey, let's just try it and then manufacture it and get it over there? And I'm sure You must have
Yeah,
seen
all
a
the
lot of
time.
failures too.
I mean, you have standards. You have standards for how you manufacture and take product to market, and the company had very high standards. So we wouldn't go experiment using the market as the place of experimentation, but we could build product and test it in test labs that we had on site, or we could put it on a test vehicle or put it on a race vehicle for evaluation, and they could do that pretty much any time. So we could build custom product. We can also try new materials and new techniques on a regular basis, and did on a regular basis. I mean, there's a lot of innovation in that company, not just in the product, but in the way that we went to market. In my role, I didn't manage product development in my time there. That was managed by almost the entire time by a guy named Steve Williams, who's a great person to talk to in his own. I mean, he's a very interesting guy. He's in the SEMA MPMC Hall of Fame for motorsports parts manufacturers, and he's a very accomplished drag racer. But he ran manufacturing, and we kind of jointly, between he and I and a guy named Steve Rogers, for most of the period that I was there, we shared marketing responsibilities and kind of moved around the responsibilities from time to time. But the company did tons of innovative things in marketing, innovated in product, innovated in how we worked with our wholesale partners. I was somebody that I had done things that you might think of as technical sales in my career, but I certainly never managed a sales team or was involved in sales. But because of the data that we had, I could do sales analytics that, I could really create data and understand where the opportunities were with the customer, or find ways to grow that wouldn't be obvious on the surface. We could share information with customers that they wouldn't typically have. And that kind of stuff led me to a role of leading sales for 8 years as one of the many different kinds of responsibilities I had over that career there. And just amazing stuff. I mean, the marketing at the time, what we were doing in the 2000 to 2015 timeframe or something like that, we were way ahead of most people on digital marketing at a time when it was so new that you could do a lot of kinds of online marketing in really sophisticated ways for really, low cost, because there wasn't a lot of demand yet. Most agencies weren't really working in that area at the time. So we did a lot of traditional media. We did a lot of TV and a lot of magazines. We were in tons of automotive and motorcycle magazines and other kinds of what I'd call traditional marketing, lots of event marketing, but we started doing digital marketing, sometime around 2000 or 2001, 2002, and really pushed in that area. And I think there were times I remember talking to people that everybody always thought, I mean, K&N was a big company in the performance aftermarket, but it wasn't a gigantic company like a household brand, consumer products company would be. But at the time we had the kind of market penetration and reach and awareness for consumers it was really amazing what we were able to accomplish in terms of brand awareness and how positive people were about the brand. And just to be clear, I mean, people were positive about the brand because it's a great product and because we were doing really high-end exceptional things in terms of the experience between us and our wholesale partners and the experience that consumers would have with the product. So that's how you don't get good brand, loyalty because you're really slick on your marketing. You get it because the experience, the product that people buy, it gives them a good experience and they want more of it and they want to tell their friends about it. And that's always been, I think of the automotive aftermarket customization world, that's the most important thing, is how influencers is a word that means different things now, but that's been around for a long, long time. So like Josh is an influencer for sure with respect to how his company, people rely on him to understand where trends are headed and what will sell and what's economic, to make good decisions about modification. Especially restylers, they're probably the most aware of cost-effective side of simple car customization modification. By simple, I don't mean the stuff you do is simple.
Yeah,
I mean, you're not tearing down motors and trying to get
Not NASCAR.
whatever in a racing environment, but they're not doing stuff, and then you go, why would you do that? There's lots of people that do that, but that's sort of the high end of the market. And like from my experience with K&N, for example, it was really about a product that you weren't going to regret spending the money ever, because the experience was well worth the $50 you spent for a performance air filter that would last the life of the car. And most of the products were like that. And I think that's the whole idea with what you're doing with within the restyling market, with putting products on the car that are awesome. And we were talking earlier about the first time we met was probably not all that different from the first time Dino and I ever had a real conversation. And both of them at the time were talking about this concept of a, like a restylers competition at the SEMA Show. And I remember especially Dino talking about it. I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about. Like it doesn't.
But he's so excited too, though.
Yeah, he was super excited. So it was hard to go, whatever he's trying to sell me as much as convince me that this would be something that would be great for the industry. But there's like, I want to get on board just because of the enthusiasm. But I remember going to the show the first year we did that competition, and I might have been Josh that was the guy that was on a video with a dealer.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the dealer had come to the show, and it might have been the first time
it
he
was.
came.
It was his first time ever.
And he came because he had a car in the competition.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, for them, it's just dollars, right?
Yeah.
We'll do a project because it's going to make us money. But he came and he saw the energy and what this industry means to, people that are enthusiastic about car modification, not just from a business, but from a consumer perspective. And they're bringing I'm sure, I think it was a Toyota truck or something, but it wasn't
Toyota
really
RAV4. It wasn't.
Yeah,
that
they see
impressive.
them all the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now it's this environment where he gets to see how people react to that. And it seemed like my impression of his response was it was an incredible connection made on what the kind of excitement that just bolt-on products or simple modification they're not big with respect to the total value of the vehicle, but they can completely change, how people react. And the one thing about this industry that will never, that's a fact, is that the OE automakers have been tremendously influenced over decades by innovation that happened in this market. And the ones that are great, that are really good, they just adopt it, right? Sometimes they offer aftermarket products. That's sort of the simple way to cheat. It's fair, but that's the easy entry. But the really good ideas sometimes end up on the mainline, production models. And of course, that's not great for the guys that are selling the aftermarket products, but it is great for the consumer, in terms of having really cool vehicles. And there's a lot of stuff now. If you went back at sort of how put together the vehicles are now off the lot.
Oh yeah.
Even without restyling, it's like that. But I mean, it's very, very different than it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was you've had quite an adventure. If you were going to look back what would you tell yourself just starting out in the industry?
go meet Ken and Norm and say, hey guys, I got an idea. So that'd be KTN filters.
I think the company started a couple years before I was born, so
Oh,
probably couldn't have,
yeah.
would have been
Well,
too late.
yeah.
No, the thing I would say, I mean, I was very blessed throughout my career to meet a lot of smart, innovative people, and to learn from them, and then leverage that into my career and drive more opportunity. But that's what networking does in general, and it doesn't. I'm not talking just about industry networking. It's even within a company, trying to understand why other people do their job the way they do, or why we as a company are choosing one approach versus another. And, my own career was really unique because I was given so many opportunities. The nature of what I was doing is that I could stick my nose into different areas of the business that normally somebody might just go, get out of here. So I'd go learn about all different kinds of manufacturing processes, and not just how the manufacturing takes place, but how you go from, the need to make something, the signals, the material flow to actually drive the line to produce something without a lot of people thinking about what to do next. And not to beat on the restyler thing, we were talking earlier about the Pro Cup Challenge at SEMA. The thing that to me was really, really interesting was part of that concept was not just taking a car and modifying it, because people have been doing that for a long, long time at SEMA, but saying this is literally the recipe. This is the ingredient list to take a stock, boring vehicle on a dealer's lot and put $5,000 custom product on it and add $10,000 of retail value to the dealer. In other words, make money for the dealer, make money for the restyler, make money for the
Manufacturers.
But most importantly, give the consumer a much more interesting, personalized vehicle. And then you look at that recipe, and they literally would have the recipe on the window, right? Window sticker.
And that's one thing I appreciate about Tim is just because what would happen is Tim sees the big picture, and that's why he was such an advocate. I would be remiss if I didn't say that, Tim. You were such an advocate, and you helped us out a lot because it was an infant age. We ran into a little bit of problems, and other people didn't quite see it. And even though you didn't understand it fully from Dino or my conception, once you saw it and you saw, hey, this is not only helping restylers, but it's bringing buyers to the show. It's also, they're putting on manufacturers that are just in all these booths. They're just bringing them all together into one. So we're helping all these guys out too. So you're one of the few people that saw that in the beginning, whereas you walk out on the lot and you see these, $100,000 builds or $75,000 builds, and it's all custom one-offs. And yeah, it's impressive, but it's not really making everyone in the industry where it's win, 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 and it can be duplicated over and over and over and over again.
Not scalable. So it's understanding. I mean, we sold product. We knew that there were people taking our product and putting it on vehicles at the dealer, pre-sale for a used car, whatever it was. But what it was understanding why you'd wanted sort of a designer in the middle, the expertise they would bring, and the supply relationships they can bring, and the speed, the agility that they bring. So they could have a customer come in and they could go, I really like this custom truck you have, but I wonder if you could have done this or that or that. Is if you have a partner that can help you deliver that, then you could do it.
I have two things I want to ask you about. So I want to ask him about consulting for a minute, and then I want to talk to him about your SEMA volunteer, because being chair of the board, that's impressive status there. So that gives you the big room on top of the hotel, But anyway, let's talk. I want to ask you about consulting, because I just did my first consulting gig, and I want to ask you, what do you when you consult? What are some do's and don'ts of consulting if people get into consulting?
I mean, there's a few things that I think are more effective. The don't's kind of hard to say all the time. I mean, what you definitely don't want to do is have every conversation be about, you know, how you did it there or why, you know, some other company. People don't want a fixed solution to every approach. They want you to listen. So success starts with being good at listening, but deep understanding is what you really need. Usually, most types of consultants have some degree of expertise in something that they can apply to common business problems. But it's making sure that you haven't jumped ahead of what are the goals or the things that are important to the business. And a lot of times, people don't know what those are, and so they're trying to articulate what they want. If they knew exactly what they want, they might not need a consultant. They need somebody who can just do that thing. But really about helping them shape strategies and the combined product of your knowledge and all their unique resources and capabilities and knowledge, and finding, a path or a solution to, or an opportunity that otherwise might get missed. So lots of fun stuff could happen. I mean, the downside of consulting is that you don't really have the authority or control to to really do things the way you want. But if you find a customer that really values your talent, your insight, your judgment, and gives you some of that freedom to at least take the company in a direction it wouldn't go otherwise, that's usually the most valuable.
So do you prefer like short term consulting, like maybe like a 90 or a day or 6-month thing, or do you prefer like the multi-year, just every so often they get with you type consulting?
I suppose it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, but for me personally, I would say most of the things I did throughout my career involved transformation of something in a business.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the whole business, doesn't have to be a big chunk of it. It can be just a little tiny slice. But transformation a lot of times takes time, a lot of it, but not always. I had projects that I did that were really fun, where we, made a big difference in a very short period of time. And that was the end of it. But I would say most of them, it's ongoing is what I enjoyed doing and what I was, had the biggest impact. So that doesn't have to be decades, but it could be years. It just depends on the company,
See, he's trying to drag that check out, Jesse.
No,
yeah. Look, come on. Let's
not
be
at all.
honest, Tim.
When did you get into consulting, and how long were you doing it, Tim?
So when I was working for the Navy, I had there's a lot of different kinds of engineering I was doing there that was product and test system design and other things. And I had an interest to do maybe some other things specifically in the software engineering arena that I was doing some of that for the Navy. That was really eventually all that I was doing was mostly focused on big data systems. But I just could see kind of the government in general, having I worked for county, state, federal government agencies in my early part of my career. Things move very slow and it's very constrained by bureaucracy, and change is not come easily. And so I kind of got to a point where I understand that I probably wanted to work in private industry. So I started doing consulting there. Sometime maybe mid 90s. I'm not sure the exact year, but those were, sort of mostly, I was fortunate at the time, but a 4-day work week with the Navy. As a civilian, I worked 10 hours and then I could go do whatever I wanted on Friday. And I did most of my consulting on Fridays and it worked fine. I mean, or nights and weekends. But doing that was the start. And that's the way I think most people get started, is they're good on the side of some other job.
Yeah.
And then, And then the opportunity with K&N was big enough that I could leave and do that full time. And then after, when I left K&N and retired, I kind of said, well, I'll do some part-time consulting after that. I was starting in 2018, did some for K&N for a while, sort of transitional work, but then started picking up a lot of different opportunities with aftermarket companies, and some of those were small projects. Sometimes it almost feels like you're a firefighter. Those it'd be fun to be a firefighter, but that's crisis management, that type of thing isn't really for me what I enjoy doing. I enjoy longer, bigger, and more creative types of things. And so those were the things that I probably looked for the most. And then I ended up with an opportunity to join the board of a company called Top Down, and they own a bunch of different brands in the convertible soft top replacement aftermarket, and by far the biggest aftermarket manufacturer of convertible tops. And then they make a bunch of high-end seating products and other interior products. So if you have a real high-end car, like a European, or Italian supercar like Josh, that you might go there for some seats for your 30-year-old Ferrari.
My S-Class 580 that's coming out.
Yeah.
I just want to change the brown seats because Maybach just did a bad job on it. But so when
that was fun. It was a very different opportunity, but it was a step in to look at operation of a business and the marketing and how to grow it.
Different than filters. So, and they have a lot better than just orange boxes. But what do you tell people about, what your SEMA career? Listen, you've done select committees, councils, networks, you are on the board, chair-elect of the board, chair, IPC, you worked with president of SEMA, you worked with vice presidents, you worked with all staff. When you think back and reflect on that, what would you tell people? What advice would you give?
My own experiences, I got involved because there were real business problems that could be solved that industry groups might be able to help solve. So the first area that I got involved was we had great product data, but it was proprietary. And when we tried to share that with customers, it took a lot of labor on the customer side to actually be able to use your data effectively because there weren't standards. And so started working with SEMA, with the Business Technology Committee back in, I don't know, it was 20 years ago or something, and trying to help create standards and promote standards, because at the time, most manufacturers couldn't supply product pictures. They couldn't supply product data. And so at the very beginning, it was just the simplest kind of product data. And just being able to give somebody parts lists, the basics seemed difficult. And then when you accomplish that, we'd move on to, well, we ought to be able to do images. And then you'd accomplish that. And then we'd move on to, well, sometimes you want multiple images, or you want a picture of the product on the car, not just a picture of the product. And those kinds of things, standards either didn't exist, or as they would come into existence through at these industry groups, and SEMA being one of them, and AutoCare and some others that were super influential. You find that you have to move into advocacy in the industry on the customers have to learn how to use those standards. Not the manufacturers would be ahead of the curve. So I got involved with that, and then that led to a bunch of different volunteer things that I did early with SEMA, and then eventually got nominated for the board of directors and served on the board since I served from 2011 to about, 2023 on the board of directors. Had one little short window where I wasn't on the board for most of that period of time. And that was really interesting, because then you'd get to, help this, what is a pretty big industry association with a lot of influence, accomplish a lot of good things for the industry and meet hundreds and hundreds of really talented, smart people from every, possible quarter of the aftermarket.
It all kind of rolled up, didn't it? Go
How,
ahead,
how do
Jesse,
you
sorry.
think the market is changing, the industry, the aftermarket industry is changing, and what should we be looking out for? If you had
Well, I heard there's some kind of electric vehicles coming. I heard
I don't buy it.
there's the market's always changed and it's continuing to change. And certainly there were periods where performance products were the most important thing. There were periods where it seemed like people just wanted to focus on wheels and tires. The interior products, important sometimes, and other times people don't think about those. But the sort of what the trends in the market are and what people are excited about has changed in a totally unpredictable, at least for me, path over the time that I've been involved. And there are some products for sure that are durable and been around the entire time, and they'll be around, 50 years from now. And there are other products where they come and go. And so the people that design products have to adapt to the powertrains of the style of vehicle and the wants of the consumer. So there's a ton of products that are sold in the truck market now that didn't exist 20 years ago, or didn't seem important. And so you have to follow that. I mean, I remember when rooftop tent campers came out, and they seemed to me like a really stupid idea, just as like, why would you want that?
Till ended up in your driveway.
And we ended up owning one, and then my daughter lived in it for a while with her husband. And I mean, they put, I told somebody we had an iCamper, an early iCamper, iCamper, iCamp 2.0 on a Ford Explorer. They probably slept in that thing 200 or 300 nights.
Jeez.
And you'd think that's to me, when I thought they were stupid, I thought nobody would ever do that. It does open up some really interesting lifestyle opportunities and recreational opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't do. And so people that know me well know that I really don't use social media very much. I've had a Facebook account and stuff, but I almost never post. I would guess the last time I posted was like day one of COVID lockdown. And it's a picture of our Explorer with the rooftop tent set up, sitting out near Moab in Utah. And it's just a beautiful setting. And I think the caption that I wrote was social distancing.
That is true social distancing. A little overlanding.
There's nothing there but you and this incredible outdoor, and that's the kind of thing that again, that concept. It isn't like people haven't been camping in vans for 30 years, but the evolution of it and the sophistication of it, even that particular rig that we had is state of the art anymore, right? So those things are always changing and moving. That's the beauty of the beauty of the consumer experience, is that there's so much diversity in the market that it isn't a handful of companies. You get to decide what is available to you. That's true in the OE market, and even regulators control what you might be available to you in the on the dealer lot straight from the factory. But the aftermarket gives you all these interesting, deep opportunities. And of course, we've seen and been involved in a lot of discussion and research dollars with SEMA. In order for the market to survive and prosper in the future, we have to be much more sophisticated about how we deal with the evolution, automotive safety and technology in the car, because things that you could do anything you wanted to a 60s vehicle or a 70s vehicle, but that's not the case anymore. And so you have to have systems and engineering approaches that are compatible with what the car allows you to do, what regulators, allow you to do, and so on.
I gotta tell you a funny story about Tim, Jesse. So we are at so the board was having a long range planning meeting in Hawaii. I happen to get invited to be just to represent a couple of the councils. So I'm in the board meeting, and they let us stay in the whole board meeting and be part of the process, and ask questions or comment or whatever. So Tim sends out homework to the entire board, including me, which I'm like, listen, I'm not on the board. But he sends out this homework. What do you think the homework is? Well, it's, hey, we're just going to review some of the programs that SEMA's dealing with, but, we're just trying to review, hey, are they still valid? Do they need a little bit changing? Do we need to get rid of it? Do we need to put more money into it? Whatever. We're going to evaluate. So I'm like, oh, okay. That's a good idea. Wow, that's really smart. So I get my packet. Okay. There's 100 programs. Like, there's like three.
We're not reviewing them all, Josh. We're only
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This time we were only reviewing like 60 of them or 30 of them. I don't even remember. All I remember,
30.
it was
30.
It was close to 300 pages of information that I'm trying to read and look through and mind-numbingly going, oh my gosh. Even on the flight out to Hawaii, I'm like looking at like, oh, I can't even believe some of these programs. So, so I'm sitting there going, there's no way we're really going to do all this. Oh, buddy, Tim is on point. Okay, program number 31. Did everybody get a chance to look at it? And here's this. And I was just like, wow. And so it made me appreciate what the board actually does. So I would like to ask you this question, Tim. What would you like to say to people who may not understand really what the board does? Now, I know that might have been, an extreme, but realistically, tell people what is it that the board does that they can maybe appreciate, because these are just unpaid volunteers.
So most of what they do is they're trying to help this association, which seems a pretty decent sized organization with, like I said, great reach and influence, do good things, important things on behalf of the industry and protect the industry and grow the industry. And so, at the core, they're trying to preserve the things that are working well, but they're trying to evolve and anticipate the places that are going to create, roadblocks or pressure for people in the business of selling aftermarket products. And so the board is trying to set priorities. They're trying to scope out different things that we should invest in and ultimately making decisions about investing in a lot of different ways to benefit the industry. And, the people that have been involved learn, and most people are aware that the SEMA Show is a giant, successful enterprise in good years. And they have a great staff, a team of people, a team of partners that put that event on. And it's an amazing event. It's exceptional what they do to put that on. And it's successful from the impact point of view, and it's successful financially. It is a financially successful show. And then they turn around and they take, the surplus that comes out of running a very successful commercial show. By the way, a show that has, pretty good fair economics with regard to, it's much cheaper to exhibit there than a lot of other places that you might exhibit in terms of the reach and impact of that event or comparable shows. But they take that and they figure out what to do with it. So, the part of that is government advocacy. So, we had a team in Washington, D.C., have an office there, and a team of something like 8 or 10 people that are working every day to protect and promote the industry to regulators and legislators. And that stuff, it would be it wouldn't be impossible for individual companies to do that, because some individual companies do develop relationships with their local Congress person or whatever it might be. But those are more, personal and local relationships. It's hard to have broad impact. You have to have that group collaboration, and they're doing stuff like that. They're doing stuff like the SEMA Garage in California and the SEMA Garage in Detroit, Michigan, where they offer product development services and research services that are very relevant, and all these different kinds of industry networking and industry, smaller, more concentrated, focused groups, councils, or other groups that are working on other problems that are good for the industry. So that deciding where the priorities are and where the resources are going to go is the majority of what is important that the board does. Providing oversight to make sure that the team of employees and partners that work there understand what's important to the industry businesses that they are representing. Because some of the people at SEMA, for example, have worked in the industry, but many of them are professionals at what they do, event management or marketing or some other thing. And they may or may not have, even if they did used to work in the industry, you've got to know what what's really important, and like me as a consultant, when I was working for companies, your value as a consultant is very closely aligned and related to your knowledge and expertise on what's important now, not what was in the past. And so this is an industry that is evolving and changing all the time. So it's not really enough to just say, well, I know a lot because of, some past experience. You've got to constantly, and that's not just for consultants, for every person that runs a business. I'm sure Josh's business today is radically different than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe not radically, but
no,
it's changed.
Happens all the time. And that's why the board does a good job of staying on top of things. And I mean, I personally won't forgive you because I'm sitting there looking, even though you did get me to Hawaii, so I appreciate that. But I'm looking out the window. I'm seeing my wife lay out in the sun. I'm seeing humpbacks in the ocean. And then I hear, Tim Martin go, all right, number 27. And it's like 4:00. And you're like, oh, so they do actually really do work hard. It's not.
The thing that was amazing was I don't think anybody really thought we would be able to cover as much as we did there.
Oh, yeah, we did. We covered it. We got it.
Made some cuts. Part of that process was about cutting. I think that day we cut almost $1 million of
programs
program expense out because we didn't feel like those programs delivered enough value to the industry.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately, when you ask what the board does, most of the things that SEMA does don't, those programs don't make money, they lose money.
Yeah.
So every one of those is considered investment, basically it's an expense, and you have to decide if the expense is worth it. And
hang with Tim, you'll cut $1 million. That's what I call it.
Most of it is about trying to incrementally improve things, just like you would in business, but making sure that you're connected to the, I mean, in the case here, it's like you've got customers, but they're almost shareholders, right? It's kind of a cooperative.
Totally is. And, listen, you've done a great job. I don't know a lot of people that really put the really heavy lifting that you did. There's a lot of changes that took place, and a lot of that was just the heavy lifting that you did. So we appreciate that. And I know I appreciate it. I look up to you as an example, icon in the industry on what you've done. So appreciate you jumping on with us. I'll let Jesse ask
And
us.
you too, Josh. I mean, a lot of people like you have put huge amounts of time into, serving the industry.
I do it for the free drinks, so you don't. You actually enjoy seeing progress and stuff like that. So
Tim, I know that you're retired or semi-retired. So do we still want to plug Aftermarket Advisors, or you want to avoid that?
No, plug Callaway Golf. Start the guy GoFundMe.
know plenty of people. If I ever am looking for work, I would.
Awesome.
So no, here's his plug. Don't call him. Let the guy be retired.
Call Josh, because he's
Yeah,
he's
you
kind of
can.
thinking
No, don't
about
call me either because, listen, I got enough stuff to do. Call Tim if you want to play golf in California because that's all he's doing. Or, I mean, he might get a new iCamper on his vehicle and head to Moab. But if you see him, talk to him, thank him for the work he's done for our industry. Thank him for, Ken and Norm should really be thanking him and their families and the shareholders.
I'm not in California anymore, Josh.
What?
so
You
I
moved
can't
east? You just keep California behind you on
live
the
in-
wall?
Live in Florida now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, there you go. I didn't know you were an East Coaster. Good. Glad you got out of there. So, all right, good deal. Well, thanks again for being on, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Tim.
And there you have it, another high-octane episode of the Ride and Style podcast, revved up and ready to go. Your hosts, Jesse Stoddard and Josh Polson, shifted your automotive game into overdrive. If you're hungry for more insights, trends, and game-changing interviews from the automotive restyling universe, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a glowing review. We'd also love for you to share this podcast with your gearheads, installers, and auto lovers network. Because remember, knowledge is power, but shared knowledge turbocharges the whole industry. For more expert resources to supercharge your business, cruise on over to autostylemarketing.com, your one-stop shop for everything automotive marketing. Until next time, keep those wheels spinning and your passion ignited. Thank you for riding in style with us. See you on the next lap.